Hey guys, this is 80 from 88 Films, and in today's video we're going to be doing an overheating test on the Canon EOS R6. So this is actually the second time I'm running this test. I ran through 4K 60 and 4K 24 yesterday. And just as I was about to upload the video, Canon, of course, released a new firmware update for the R6. So I got straight back into it again. I downloaded the new version. So we're now on 1.1.1 and we're running the test again. So let's see what happens. Okay, so first up, I just want to quickly run over what happened yesterday with firmware version 1.1.0. As you can see in 4K 60, I started here with a 20-minute limit and I hit record and we made it all the way to 24 minutes and 20 seconds before we had a shutdown. I turned the camera back on to find that it wouldn't let me record in any of the 4K modes, but it would let me record in 1080p. I turned the camera off and gave it a rest for 10 minutes. And when I put it back on, it gave us a 10-minute timer and we actually managed to record for another 16 minutes before we overheated and shut down. The camera did feel quite warm on the back and almost as warm on the grip and underneath. We were still able to record in 1080-60 as well as a high frame rate 1080-120 frames. It gave us a time limit here of 7 minutes and 29 seconds, which I think is plenty time enough for that kind of slow motion. I turned the camera off for another 5 minutes, and when we put it back on, we had a countdown timer of 5 minutes. But the camera recorded again for another 8 minutes, but this time the memory card filled up. I decided to stop the test here because I was actually more interested in 4K 24, as this is what I'd be shooting more often. And in the 4K 60, I'd actually recorded for 45 minutes within the space of an hour, which I think is plenty for the kind of work that I do. Anything long form, I'll always shoot in 24 frames. In the 4K 24, I recorded for an hour and 3 minutes before the camera I was recording on actually ran out of battery. But we made it to 12 minutes and 30 seconds before the camera did overheat and shut down. So overall, an hour and 12 minutes. Not bad. We saw a ridiculous improvement on firmware version 1.1.1 though. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. At one point I had to double check to make sure I was in 4K 60, but basically what happened was that I didn't even get an overheat warning. It didn't even pop up once. The camera would stop recording at the 29 minutes and 59 seconds, the typical limit for Canon cameras, but I would just hit record straight away again and it would just keep going, and I kept going until the card was full, and then I formatted and hit record again and just kept going. I honestly didn't expect this out of a firmware update. It was a bit cooler today by a degree or two, but not enough to have this kind of effect. This firmware has made a huge difference. And while I actually think that on the previous firmware, I would have been okay with my style of shooting, now I know it's something that I just don't have to worry about. And unless you're shooting long form video in a hot climate and you need to be in 4K 60, then I don't think it's something that you should be concerned with either. The camera just kept recording without a single warning all the way until the battery was completely exhausted. I didn't even bother testing the 4K 24 in the end because the 4K 60 just didn't overheat. So I feel like overheating and the R6 is just a thing of the past. Let's just forget all about it. It's not really a thing anymore. I guess if you're out shooting on a really hot day, you were shooting a lot of 4K 60, perhaps you might still have some issues. I know for my style of shooting, the type of work that I do, I'll never come anywhere near overheating this camera, but it looks like it's over. It looks like we won't have to put up with any overheating issues at all. Anyway guys, I will come back at you with a low light test. I'm gonna run through all the different ISOs. So if you wanna see that, make sure you subscribe below and I'll see you next time.